This message comes from Capital One with the Venture X card. Earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy. Plus, get premium benefits at a collection of hotels when booking through Capital One Travel. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Giles Snyder. President Trump's move to fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics is raising concerns about political interference with how the government produces statistics to monitor the U.S. economy. As NPR's Hansi Lo-Wong reports.
President Trump ordered to cut short Erica McIntyre's first term as Commissioner of Labor Statistics hours after her statistical agency released numbers showing a slowdown in the job market. Many economists have feared uncertainty over Trump's push for more import taxes through his tariff policy would drive this shift. In a statement, Friends of BLS, an advocacy group for the Bureau chaired by two former commissioners, including one Trump nominated during his first term, says Trump's baseless claim of McIntyre for deliberately reporting false numbers, quote, undermines the credibility of federal economic statistics that are a cornerstone of intelligent economic decision-making by businesses, families, and policymakers, unquote. The group is calling for Congress to investigate what led to McIntyre's firing. Hansi Lo-Wong, NPR News, Washington.
The weak job numbers for July and Trump's latest tariff rollout led Wall Street to fall the most since May. Also, the door is now open for President Trump to make an imprint on the Federal Reserve. Fed Governor Adriana Kugler announced her resignation on Friday. A manhunt is ongoing in western Montana, where police say a gunman opened fire in a bar near the small town of Anaconda, killing 4 people. Authorities have identified the suspect as a 45-year-old military veteran named Michael Brown, and Granite County Sheriff Rico Barkel says he should be considered armed and dangerous.
Anytime you got an active shooter still on the loose, is going to be dangerous. So I know Deer Lodge County and Anaconda are taking every kind of precaution they can to make sure their citizens are safe.
Authorities are urging residents to stay at home and on high alert. Anaconda is about 25 miles northwest of Butte and is hemmed in by mountains. Rising deaths from hunger in Gaza prompted a visit to the territory by President Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, and U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. NPR's Aya Petraoui reports they were escorted in Gaza by Israeli forces as they visited a U.S.-funded food distribution site that's overseen by Israel.
Huckabee shared a photo on X from the site they visited in southern Gaza. It shows a crowd of Palestinians standing behind barbed wire, waiting for food. An armed American contractor manning the site stands next to a banner proclaiming 100 million meals have been delivered by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Iyad Amawi, a Palestinian aid coordinator in Gaza, says Witkoff's visit to the site doesn't reflect the, quote, true scope of the catastrophe.
Aid should not require such suffering. It should reach people where they are, not force them into a race for survival.
Gaza's health ministry says more than 700 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces trying to reach food at these U.S.-backed sites. Israel's military says troops have only fired warning shots at the crowds. Aya Petraoui, NPR News.
This is NPR News. President Trump has ordered the repositioning of 2 U.S. nuclear submarines following what he says are highly provocative statements by former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. The two have been trading barbs on social media after Trump shortened a 50-day deadline to 10 days for Russia to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine or face new tariffs. A former Colombian president has been sentenced to 12 years of house arrest after being convicted of bribery and witness tampering. Alvaro Uribe says he will appeal the verdict. As Manuel Rureta reports, a trial has been closely followed in Colombia, where Uribe remains an influential figure.
Judge Sandra Heredia said that Uribe tried to flip witnesses who testified against him in an investigation that looked into Uribe's alleged ties to a paramilitary group. But Uribe's supporters say the judge based her ruling on evidence that was gathered illegally. Some gathered outside the courthouse where the sentence was issued.
The violations of due process are huge.
Francisco Santos is Uribe's former vice president.
The real judicial process is going to start in the appeal.
Uribe is widely credited with improving security in Colombia in the early 2000s. But critics say his policies also led to abuses by the army and illegal groups that were created to fight left-wing guerrillas. For NPR News, I'm Manuel Rueda in Bogota.
In golf, Japan has the top 2 positions on the leaderboard heading into today's third round at the Women's British Open, the only women's major held outside the United States. Miyu Yamashita is the overall leader. I'm Giles Snyder. This is NPR News.
This message comes from Bombas. Socks, underwear, and t-shirts are the top 3 requested clothing items by people experiencing homelessness. Bombas makes all 3 and donates 1 item for every item purchased. Go to bombas.com/NPR and use code NPR for 20% off.
This message comes from Capital One with the Capital One Saver Card. Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment. Capital One. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Giles Snyder. President Trump says he's ordering 2 nuclear submarines to be moved toward Russia. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports on the move following threats from a top Russian official.
President Trump announced he was taking cautionary steps because of, quote, provocative statements from former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Earlier this week, Medvedev warned Trump was playing an ultimatum game with Russia after Trump shortened a 50-day deadline to 10 days for Russia to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine or face new tariffs. Medvedev said each new ultimatum is a step toward war. Trump posted on social media that the submarines were being moved, quote, just in case these foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that. Trump added that words are very important and can often lead to unintended consequences. I hope this will not be one of those instances. Franco Ordonez, NPR News, the White House.
President Trump's move to fire the Labor Department official responsible for the monthly jobs report is drawing concern from analysts like Natasha Sarin at the nonpartisan Yale Budget Lab, which provides economic analysis of federal policy proposals.
Our government data is so incredibly valuable and also collected painstakingly by career civil servants who dedicate themselves to the task of trying to inform the public about the ways in which the economy is evolving.
Trump fired the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics hours after her agency said the nation added just 73,000 jobs last month. The weak jobs numbers and Trump's latest tariff rollout led Wall Street to fall the most since May. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says Trump is shooting the messenger. There's been an outpouring of grief for a well-known Palestinian who was allegedly killed by an Israeli settler this week. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley says the settler, who was detained by police, has now been released.
You're very aware of the danger of... Representatives from European governments came to offer condolences after the shooting of Auda Hatelin, who helped make the Oscar-winning documentary No Other Land about the expropriation of Palestinian lands here by Israeli settlers. Through an interpreter, Hatelin's brother, Khalil, speaks to the Europeans.
Look around you, there's no problem, there's no military, no one's evicting us because you're Europeans and you're here.
Oriel Eisner is an Israeli activist helping Palestinian villages like this one threatened by settlers.
The settlers and the government in lockstep with them are just doing whatever they want and taking over whatever land they want.
Eisner says things are much worse for West Bank Palestinians, with right-wing settlers now part of the Israeli government. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Al Khair, the West Bank.
And you're listening to NPR News. Authorities are searching a mountainous area of western Montana for a gunman who opened fire at a bar, killing 4 people. The suspect is a 45-year-old military veteran. Officials are warning residents to stay inside and on high alert because they consider him armed and dangerous. Lawmakers in Tennessee fast-tracking plans by Elon Musk, the Boring Company, for a tunnel to Nashville's airport. But residents and city leaders are sounding the alarm over Musk's environmental and safety track record. Rose Gilbert, member station WPLN reports.
Tennessee's Building Commission voted unanimously to gift a no-rent lease of state-owned land for the project. State lawmakers who represent Nashville say they were blindsided and have serious concerns about potential risks for residents. Last year, an artificial intelligence company owned by Musk opened a supercomputer facility in Memphis, near a predominantly black neighborhood. That facility is powered by turbines that emit hazardous air pollutants and is the subject of a lawsuit. Richard Massey is a community organizer in Memphis.
Long story short, there is a significant human cost to doing business with the richest man in the world.
Massey pointed out that a similar Boring Company project in Las Vegas has been plagued by permit issues and safety complaints. For NPR News, I'm Rose Gilbert in Nashville.
Elon Musk SpaceX has delivered 4 new crew members to the International Space Station. The astronauts from the U.S., Russia, and Japan arrived early this morning aboard a SpaceX capsule less than 15 hours after liftoff from Florida. They replaced 4 others who are to return home as early as Wednesday. I'm Giles Snyder. This is NPR News.
This message comes from Warby Parker. Prescription eyewear that's expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Glasses designed in-house from premium materials starting at just $95, including prescription lenses. Stop by a Warby Parker store near you.
This message comes from Capital One with the Capital One Saver Card. Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment. Capital One. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com.
Live from NPR News, I'm Dale Willman. President Trump announced tariff rates for 66 countries early Friday morning. When he first announced his tariff scheme early in his administration, he said he'd have 90 trade deals in 90 days, but he's still struggling to come even close to that number of deals, even after his latest deadline for agreements passed.
The tariffs also seem to be backfiring, at least so far, when it comes to boosting manufacturing. U.S. factories have been cutting jobs in each of the last 3 months. Tariffs are already showing up in higher prices as well for things like toys and appliances that we import a lot of, and that's pushing inflation in the wrong direction, which is not ideal for a president who campaigned on a promise of bringing prices down.
That's NPR's Scott Horsley. Trump, meanwhile, has levied the highest of its new tariffs on Syria. NPR's Jana Raff reports from Jordan.
The new tariff rate on Syria, 41%, is second only to the 50% rate the administration previously imposed on Brazil. The U.S. this year lifted most trade sanctions against Syria to help its troubled economy after the fall of the Bashar al-Assad regime last December. President Trump described the global tariffs as a response to an extraordinary threat to the national security and economy of the United States. But official U.S. trade figures show only about $10 million in Syrian exports to the U.S. last year, most of it in spices and preserved foods, compared with about $2 million in U.S. exports to that country. Jana Raff, NPR News, Amman.
U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee and Mideast envoy Steve Witkoff visited a food distribution site in Rafah on Friday. The Gaza City has been mostly destroyed in more than 21 months of Israel's military offensive there. Witkoff says he wants a new plan to distribute aid to Gaza. More than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli gunfire since May as they were looking for aid. A jury has found Tesla partially responsible for a fatal crash in 2019. The Tesla's driver was distracted and he had turned on autopilot, which is one of Tesla's driver assistance software features. As NPR's Camilla Dominowski reports, the jury awarded $329 million in damages, including $200 million in punitive damages.
When the Tesla sped through an intersection and slammed into a parked SUV, it left a young woman dead and a young man severely injured. The suit against Tesla alleged that the company had exaggerated the abilities of autopilot, encouraging drivers to rely on it. A jury found that the Tesla's driver was mostly responsible for the crash, but that the automaker bore 33% of the blame. A lawyer for the victims' families said the ruling represents justice. Tesla's lawyers have not responded to NPR's request for comment. Last week, Tesla posted on X that a driver using autopilot is, quote, 10 times safer than the average U.S. driver. Camila Dominowski, NPR News.
And this is NPR News. In what might be the first such action in the European Union, Slovenia has announced a ban on the import, export, and transit of all weapons to and from Israel. The ban is in response to Israel's actions in Gaza. Slovenia has criticized Israel in the past over what officials call their atrocities in Gaza. Slovenia's parliament recognized Palestinian statehood in 2024. Friday was the start of Edinburgh's festival season. It's when the Scottish capital's population nearly doubles for the month of August as artists and theatergoers visit for overlapping festivals, including the Edinburgh International Festival, Book Festival, Film Festival, and the most popular one, Fringe. NPR's Lauren Frayer reports from London.
Fringe is where the Netflix stalker hit Baby Reindeer first originated. It's where Phoebe Waller-Bridge first performed her Fleabag show, and where the 90s percussion group Stomp got its start. It's called Fringe because it began nearly 80 years ago as unofficial alternative events on the fringe of the Edinburgh International Festival, which it's now eclipsed. There are more than 3,800 shows from more than 60 countries: comedy, dance, avant-garde theater, even circus performers and cabaret acts. Organizers call it the world's largest performing arts festival. They typically sell more than 2.5 million tickets. Lauren Fryer, NPR News, London.
Mali's former prime minister has been arrested. He was placed in pre-trial detention after he expressed solidarity with jailed critics of the ruling military junta. He's been accused of damaging the country's credibility. His trial is scheduled to begin in September. The military seized power there almost 4 years ago. I'm Dale Willman, NPR News.
This message comes from Warby Parker. Prescription eyewear that's expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Glasses designed in-house from premium materials starting at just $95, including prescription lenses. Stop by a Warby Parker store near you. This message comes from NPR sponsor Odoo. Some describe Odoo like a magic beanstalk because it scales with you and is magically affordable. Odoo, exactly what a business needs. Sign up at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
Live from NPR News, I'm Dale Willman.
Dragon contact and soft capture complete.
There are 4 new residents at the International Space Station tonight. A SpaceX rocket delivered a new crew there within the last hour. It took just 15 hours for the astronauts from the U.S., Russia, and Japan to make the trip. They're replacing a crew who's been there since March, and they'll spend at least 6 months in orbit conducting experiments. Wall Street slumped Friday after President Trump announced his latest tariffs and after a report showed the labor market weakening in July. As NPR's Raphael Nam reports, it all took place during a busy day of news for investors.
It was quite a ride for markets. Stocks slumped after Trump announced tariffs on a wide range of countries, and after the economic data showed only 73,000 jobs were created in July. The numbers for the previous 2 months were also lowered substantially. Trump responded to the data with a stunning call to fire a top official in charge of labor statistics, accusing her without any evidence of manipulating the data. Trump also again attacked the Fed for not lowering interest rates, but he's newly poised to shape the central bank. The Fed says Governor Adriana Kugler is resigning, giving the president a chance to make a key appointment to the Fed. Raphael Nam, NPR News.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, is hoping to increase hiring in the coming months. And as NPR's Jimena Bustillo reports, it's now recruiting retired federal workers to join its ranks.
The requests came in an email which was shared with NPR and posted on LinkedIn and elsewhere online, and asked them to serve, quote, once more. The agency is offering former employees a $50,000 signing bonus split up over the course of several years. The Trump administration wants to recruit 10,000 people for immigration enforcement. ICE has historically been the smallest immigration enforcement agency at the Homeland Security Department. In its 2024 year-end report, the agency reported particularly struggling with growing its workforce over the past decade and across administrations of both political parties. But this administration has a goal of deporting 1 million people, and it will need to significantly increase its workforce even beyond ICE to get close to reaching that goal. Jimena Bustillo, NPR News.
Mideast envoy Steve Witkoff and U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee were in Gaza on Friday. They visited an aid distribution site in the city of Rafah, which has been almost completely destroyed during the more than 21 months of fighting. Witkoff says he's working on a new plan to get aid into Gaza. However, he's not requested any meetings with UN officials who are overseeing much of the current aid. U.S. stock markets fell on Friday after President Trump unveiled stiff tariffs for a wide range of countries that sparked concerns about how the tariffs will affect the U.S. and global economies. A weaker than expected labor market also contributed to the losses. The Nasdaq dropped 2.24%. You're listening to NPR News. Country music great Jeannie Seely has died. Her publicist says she died Friday from complications of an intestinal infection. Seely was known as Miss Country Soul, and she was celebrated for her spirited nonconformity in the 60s and 70s. She had many hits, including Don't Touch Me. She also appeared more than 5,000 times at the Grand Ole Opry. The Opry's Saturday show will be dedicated to her. South African researchers have launched an unusual project aimed at protecting rhinos from poaching. From Johannesburg, Kate Bartlett reports.
South African rhinos have gone radioactive. Scientists from a Johannesburg university launched the campaign this week, injecting 5 rhinos with the radioactive isotopes with plans to roll it out further. It comes after the scientists did a trial last year that found the material was not harmful in any way to the rhinos. James Larkin is heading the project.
It'll devalue the rhino horn in the eyes of the end user. And 2, it makes it significantly easier to detect these horns as they're moved across international borders.
Individual horns can even be detected in 40-foot shipping containers. About 500 rhinos are killed for their horns each year in South Africa. For NPR News, I'm Kate Bartlett in Johannesburg.
Cameron Young took the lead Friday in the PGA Championship in North Carolina just before rain hit and caused a delay in the second round. The round will continue Saturday morning. Young made 2 straight birdies to reach 14 under par and move past defending champion Aaron Rai. The championship is the last event of the PGA's regular season. I'm Dale Willman, NPR News.
This message comes from Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile took what's wrong with wireless and made it right. They offer premium wireless plans for less, and all plans include high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, and nationwide coverage. See for yourself at mintmobile.com/switch. This message comes from NPR sponsor Odoo. Some describe Odoo like a magic beanstalk because it scales with you and is magically affordable. Odoo, exactly what a business needs. Sign up at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
Live from NPR News, I'm Dale Willman. President Trump has fired the woman who headed the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The Bureau issued a monthly jobs report Friday that showed hiring in July slowed dramatically from earlier in the year. Speaking to reporters later in the day, Trump said Erica McIntyre is manipulating the numbers for political reasons, but he offered no proof of that.
She came out with these beautiful numbers trying to get somebody else elected. Then right after the election, I think on the 15th, November 15th, she had an $800,000 or $900,000 massive reduction. Said she made a mistake.
McIntyre's term was set to expire in 2028. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which has helped fund public radio and television for nearly 6 decades, announced Friday it's shutting down. NPR's Frank Langfitt reports from Washington.
The decision to close marks a watershed in American media. President Lyndon Johnson and Congress created the corporation, known as the CPB, in 1967 to support public service broadcasting, including NPR and PBS. But President Trump pressed Congress last month to defund the corporation, arguing that NPR and PBS were biased, which their executives deny. With no federal funding, the CPB said it has to close its doors. Many local stations rely on federal funding, and some have already announced layoffs. The cuts have led to a surge in public donations, but some station managers say they are not enough to make up for the lost federal dollars, nor is it clear how long that public generosity will last. Frank Langfitt, NPR News, Washington.
A manhunt continues in western Montana at this hour. Police are still looking for 45-year-old Michael Brown. They say he opened fire Friday morning in a bar in Anaconda and killed 4 people. Police say the Army veteran is likely still armed and dangerous, and they're warning people in the area to stay indoors. The Swiss government says it will work to reach a deal with the United States after the White House announced a higher 39% tariff on imports from the Alpine country. Switzerland is not a member of the European Union. Esme Nicholson has more.
Switzerland's Foreign Minister Ignazio Cassis has expressed great regret in reaction to even higher import levies than expected, but added he is confident a solution can be negotiated before August 7th. The Economy Ministry says it understands that the 39% tariffs do not apply to the pharmaceutical sector, despite pressure from the US to lower drug prices. Swiss officials had been waiting to sign a joint statement on what they thought was to be the framework for a deal with the White House. Switzerland invests more than $300 billion a year in the United States and supports more than 500,000 US jobs. For NPR News, I'm Esme Nicholson in Berlin.
It was a down day on Wall Street Friday. The Dow was down by 542 points at the close. The Nasdaq down 472 points. You're listening to NPR News. Indonesia has begun releasing hundreds of inmates from its prisons as part of the first stage of a wide-ranging clemency plan. Those prisons have been notoriously overcrowded for many years. The first group of almost 122 prisoners began leaving, or rather 1,200 prisoners began leaving on Friday. Indonesia's president says he plans to grant clemency to 44,000 inmates across the country. This week, thousands of older athletes from around the U.S. are in Des Moines, Iowa, to compete in the National Senior Games. The games feature more than 24 sports competitions. Iowa Public Radio's Natalie Krebs has our reports.
The growing national competition for athletes who are 50 and older happens every 2 years. Participants compete in more than 24 events, including pickleball, swimming, shuffleboard, and Tai Chi. This year's competition has 12,500 athletes participating. It's the second highest attendance in the organization's nearly 40-year history. Sue Lavacek is the CEO of the National Senior Games.
You know, everybody thinks when you turn 50 you're old and can't do anything, but it gives an outlet and opportunity for our athletes socially, mentally, and physically participate.
The 12-day competition goes through Monday. For NPR News, I'm Natalie Krebs in Des Moines.
The push by the NFL's Washington Commanders to return to the site of their former home in Washington, D.C. has cleared another administrative hurdle. The D.C. Council approved legislation okaying the move on Friday, but it still needs a second approval before it can be sent to the district's mayor for a signature. I'm Dale Willman, NPR News.
This message comes from Warby Parker. Prescription eyewear that's expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Glasses designed in-house from premium materials starting at just $95, including prescription lenses. Stop by a Warby Parker store near you. This message comes from NPR sponsor Odoo. Some describe Odoo like a magic beanstalk because it scales with you and is magically affordable. Odoo, exactly what a business needs. Sign up at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
Live from NPR News, I'm Dale Willman. President Trump says he's going to remove the head of the agency that produces the monthly jobs figures. That decision came soon after the latest jobs report that shows a drastic drop in new hires in July. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben says the numbers infuriated Trump.
Rather than address the slowing job growth, he instead just decided to attack the messenger. He went on social media and posted that he was firing Dr. Erica McIntyre. She's the Commissioner of Labor Statistics. Now, she was a Biden appointee, and he accuses her, therefore, of manipulating the jobs numbers to hurt him and Republicans. And really, this is an astounding moment. Now, first of all, we've seen no evidence that she manipulated anything. But furthermore, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it's just staffed by numbers people.
That's NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben. The late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's longtime accomplice and former girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell has been moved from a federal prison in Florida to a prison camp in Texas. The move comes a week after she met with a top Justice Department official. NPR's Ryan Lucas has more.
Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence for helping Jeffrey Epstein sexually exploit underage girls. She had been held at a federal lockup in Florida, but the Federal Bureau of Prisons says Maxwell has now been transferred to a lower security prison camp in Bryan, Texas. No reason was given for the move, but it comes after Maxwell's meeting last week with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who previously served as President Trump's personal attorney. The Justice Department has not provided any details on the meeting, which was behind closed doors. Maxwell's attorney, though, has said she answered every question from Blanche over 2 days. The meeting was part of the Trump administration's effort to tamp down public uproar over its handling of the Epstein files. Ryan Lucas, NPR News, Washington.
As concerns about the humanitarian situation in Gaza continue to rise, a major U.S. Jewish organization is donating funds for a group of Christians there. NPR's Jason DeRose has more.
The American Jewish Committee is giving $25,000 for the rehabilitation of Holy Family Catholic Church in Gaza. Holy Family is one of only 2 churches in the embattled enclave. The Jewish group is giving the money to the Archdiocese of New York, which will oversee the funds getting to the congregation. Scores of people, both Christians and Muslims, have been sheltering at Holy Family since the start of the war in Gaza. Multiple people have been killed there by snipers and shelling. The donation comes as a growing number of Jewish leaders in the U.S. are expressing concerns about Israel's conduct of the war, especially the lack of food being allowed into Gaza. Jason DeRose, NPR News.
Slovenia has announced a ban on the import, export, and transit of all weapons to and from Israel. Officials say the move is in protest of Israel's actions in Gaza. It appears to be the first such decision by any European Union member state. Slovenia has criticized what it's called Israel's atrocities in Gaza. This is NPR News. The stock market Friday had its worst day since May after the government reported a sharp slowdown in hiring. President Trump also imposed sweeping tariffs on a number of U.S. trading partners. The S&P 500 fell 1.6%, while the Nasdaq lost 2.2%. The Dow, meanwhile, fell 1.2%. Some professors and students are criticizing Brown University's recent $50 million deal with the Trump administration. From member station GBH, Kirk Carapezza reports that this is the third agreement with an Ivy League school following deals by Penn and Columbia.
Under Brown's deal, the university will provide admissions and hiring data and adopt the government's definition of male and female. Jay Green is a research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He says the dollar amounts aren't what matters. The point, he says, is to get colleges to comply with federal law.
The boards of trustees are legally responsible, but they lack authority. That's because universities have developed a culture where the faculty have come to believe that they run the institution, and they run it as a commune. But that's not true.
Brown President Christina Paxson says the agreement was voluntary and preserves professors' ability to teach without government intrusion. For NPR News, I'm Kirk Carapezza in Boston.
A lawyer representing 5 men deported by the U.S. to the African nation of Eswatini says they've already served their criminal sentences before they were put in prison there. The attorney says the 5 are being denied legal representation. The men were secretly deported last month. I'm Dale Willman, NPR News.
This message comes from Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile took what's wrong with wireless and made it right. They offer premium wireless plans for less, and all plans include high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, and nationwide coverage. See for yourself at mintmobile.com/switch. This message comes from NPR sponsor Odoo Business Management Software. Some say Odoo is like fertilizer because it promotes growth. Others say it's a magic beanstalk, scaling with efficiency. Odoo, exactly what a business needs. Sign up today at odoo.com.
Live from NPR News, I'm Dale Willman. A search is underway in western Montana at this hour for 45-year-old Michael Brown, who police say opened fire in a bar near the town of Anaconda. 4 people were killed. Granite County Undersheriff Rico Barkle says they assume Brown is still armed.
Anytime you got active shooter still on the loose is going to be dangerous. So I know Deer Lodge County and Anaconda are taking every kind of precaution they can to make sure their citizens are safe.
The shooting happened Friday morning. Police say Brown is an Army veteran who lived next door to the bar. They've not offered a motive for the shooting. President Trump is calling on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors to assume control if the board's chairman won't lower interest rates. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports on Trump's latest attack against the Fed chair.
President Trump intensified his attacks on the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, calling him a moron in a series of social media posts. On the same day, the government released a not-so-great jobs report. Trump later referred to the Fed chair as, quote, Jerome Too Late Powell, and called again for rates to be lowered. Policymakers at the Federal Reserve voted 9-2 to hold interest rates steady, despite the pressure campaign from the president. The Fed cut rates 1 percentage point last year, but since then have been waiting to see how the president's new tariffs impact the broader economy. Some investors are predicting a rate cut to come at the next Fed meeting in September. Franco Ordonez, NPR News, the White House.
After visiting a food distribution site with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee wrote on social media Friday that the Gaza health facilities are delivering more than 1 million meals a day, and he called that, quote, an incredible feat. As NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports, the group Human Rights Watch calls the food distribution points run by Israeli troops and U.S. private contractors a militarized, quote, death trap.
In a new report out Friday, Human Rights Watch says the militarized food delivery system has turned food distribution into, quote, a regular bloodbath. Prominent Israeli newspaper columnist Gideon Levy agrees, and he says the goal goes beyond starvation.
The goal is a total ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip, and the plan is very, very clear, and the evidences are very clear. The destruction is systematic. They erase whole villages, towns, neighborhoods.
The columnist for newspaper Haaretz says the Israeli government of Benjamin Netanyahu wants to make Gaza unlivable. Israel's government says it's stepping up aid efforts as it faces mounting international criticism. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
It was a bad day on Wall Street Friday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed down 1.23%, the Nasdaq down 2.24%, and the S&P 500 closed down 1.6%. This is NPR News. President Trump has fired the head of the agency that produces the monthly job figures. That dismissal took place after the Bureau of Labor Statistics released that monthly report that showed hiring in the U.S. had slowed dramatically. Tejano music icon Flaco Jimenez died Thursday night. He was 86 years old. As Texas Public Radio's Kira Schwegler reports, over the course of his 70-year career, Jimenez won 6 Grammys and a National Medal of the Arts.
Flaco Jimenez was known for his accordion, as heard in this 2012 appearance at NPR's Tiny Desk.
Margarita, Margarita.
He started his career in San Antonio at age 17, following the footsteps of his father. By the time he was in his 40s, he was playing worldwide tours and appearing in movie soundtracks. His younger brother, Santiago Jimenez, says his memory will live on.
We did our last CD. I have it in my studio. The name of the CD se llama Nuevamente Juntos. Together again. Together again.
Jimenez achieved mainstream prominence through his musical collaborations with artists like Ry Cooder, Dwight Yoakam, and the Rolling Stones. I'm Kira Schwegler in San Antonio.
Russia's space chief was in the U.S. this week to discuss cooperation between Moscow and Washington on the International Space Station, as well as lunar research between the two countries. It's the first such meeting in more than 7 years. U.S. and Russian crews continue to use the space outpost for scientific research. I'm Dale Willman, NPR News.
This message comes from Warby Parker. What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost, like free adjustments for life. Find your pair at warbyparker.com or visit one of their hundreds of stores around the country.